All right, we're live. Good to go. I always have trouble with technology, especially when I don't have someone on the back end helping me set up all the streaming stuff. So I think we're good to go. Yeah, it says people are watching live. So good. Keith, thank you so much for joining me. I watched the Inside Effects with my wife, and it is an incredibly informative film. It was I gotta give you credit on that. It was incredible watching it. And I also want to acknowledge because I have people on my show who don't fully agree on certain things, and it's a delicate dance to include them in a project where you are taking a stance, for lack of a better term,
Yeah.
but not wanting to censor them, but also wanting to include their commentary. And I noticed that, and I picked up on that because I've had to do it myself. Because it's not that because they missed the mark on some things, they don't have other worthwhile things to say. But all that to say, brilliant job with the film, The Inside Effects, and that's going to be the primary focus of today's conversation. So I think the most appropriate place to start is with you introducing yourself, giving your health story and your journey, because that's all kind of one thing with the book and the film, and just start from there.
All right. Well, first, I want to thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed your work right over the last few years and seeing you grow. And I really appreciate the non-polarized way that you do things, right? How you are able to interview people that you don't have the same opinion with and can stay neutral. And when you don't, you call yourself out on it. I mean, just the level that you play at and the place that you come from. I just want to say thank you for that, for all of us. So I'm grateful to be here. I've been looking forward to this. Uh, who is Keith Leon S? Who is this guy talking to you right now? And how did I get to make this film? Starts back when I was 7 years old, and my aunt was diagnosed by a doctor and told that she had cancer all throughout her body and she had 2 weeks to live. Had the audacity to tell her she had 2 weeks to live, she should get her affairs in order. And she, being a woman of faith, said, "No, that's I'm here for greater things than that. And so we'll come back in 2 weeks. We'll take your tests again. We'll see where we're at then." And they're like, "Okay, crazy lady." They sent her off. Right? She came back 2 weeks later, and this cancer that they said was spread all throughout her body, was going to kill her in two weeks, was completely gone. There was nothing to find. And this was back in the 70s when
Incredible.
they weren't reporting this stuff in the 70s. It was
Yeah.
happening, but they weren't reporting it. So she said there was a line of doctors up the hallway looking at the before and after MRIs going, "What on earth happened? What on 2 weeks? What?" Right? And so she told me this story and she said, "Keith, don't ever let anybody give you a diagnosis. Anything that's been created can be uncreated,
Mm.
especially cancer. It's like you always have that in your body. It's like a man-made thing to scare you." And just so she just like
She
educated me.
got it. Thank goodness that she
Yeah.
did.
And,
Incredible.
and because of that, I never have had a cancer diagnosis, nor have I feared one. Right? And I was just like, "Oh, not a thing." And even if I got it, I'd just get rid of it in 2 weeks like her. So that really stuck with me. And I'm a very inquisitive person. Throughout my life, I've interviewed people about lots of people about questions that I wanted answers to, right? One being life after life, people that have passed away and come back. I interviewed all of them to find out things. And so this happened because I always had a plan since I was young. I drew out my life. 20s and 30s, rock star. 40s, best-selling author and speaker. 50s, filmmaker. That was it. That's what I was going to do. So
How old are you now, if you don't mind
I'm
me asking?
58, right?
58.
So I 20s and 30s, I played music. I didn't have as big of a success as I wanted. However, I have played with Stevie Wonder, Ben Vereen,
That's
Kev
cool.
Mo,
That's an
I mean,
incredible experience.
yeah, the list is long of legends that I've been blessed enough to play with. I sang at the Greek Theater in LA. I've done some things. So for me, check, right? Click that box. Uh, Then 40s, I started writing books. My wife and I wrote our first book together, um, and that went really well. And my mentors, one of them was Jack Canfield. When we had had success in best-selling books, he said, you know, you're teaching all these people now to write books. You might want to publish them. So we ended up getting into publishing. 20 years now we've been in publishing. Well, that went so well that I found myself at 55, and I was in. I do this group, kind of mentoring group, and somebody asked me like, you know, when are you going to make a film? Because they heard me say that, and I was like, oh my God! I realized I was like 56, hadn't made a film yet. So I was like, oh my God, it's time to get to work. And so we were in the middle of what's been going on the last 3 years. This is like about a year into that. And so I'm thinking, what would I make a film about? And I started thinking about um, this woman named Lisa Warner and also my friend Karen Can, who I
These are
talked.
the ladies that are at the very beginning of the film, right?
Yes, yes. So I had uh, at the time then was 23 years of chronic pain. And I mean level 9, level 10. By 4 or 5 o'clock, I had to close the lid when I was working because I just couldn't even focus anymore. It was starting to close in on me,
Hmm.
like that much pain. And it just went on and on. I tried everything to the tune of, I don't even know how much money. Every person that said, I can fix you, I can do the thing, right? I did it all and nothing helped. And then I met with Karen Can, dear friend of mine. We were the publishers of a few of her books, and she worked with me twice, and I started to feel a little less pain, see a little bit of movement. But then I met with Lisa Warner, and twice I met with her. And when I met with her, she told me the truth about healing and how the body heals itself. She told me that everything that I had ever learned about health was completely backwards, flipped upside down. That
Did this kind
healing,
of like spark the memory of what your aunt had told you previously?
exactly,
Got it.
yes,
Wow.
yes. So it was like the pain was actually healing, and that anytime that I was trying to mask the pain or get rid of the pain, I was stopping the healing. So I've been
Yes.
stopping the healing for 29, 26 years by then. And so she
Which
got
leads
me
to chronic issues, which if I may real quick, that's always been my sort of hypothesis, if you will, is that um, the reason we have so much chronic disease today is because that is literally what all of both Western medicine and a lot of alternative medicine is based on, including, functional medicine. And functional medicine is like this is a very general statement. It's not true of all functional medicine doctors, but it's like the greenwashed version of allopathy in that instead of prescribing pharmaceuticals, let's prescribe these certain supplements to mask the symptoms rather than treating the root cause, which
yes.
causes chronic issues later on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so she had told me that if I would lean into the pain and be grateful for it instead of fighting it, and would say I'm so healing right now instead of I'm in so much pain right now. I'm really healing today, right? These are the things that I would say. And so all my affirmative speak was about healing. I was leaning into the pain and I stopped taking anything to try to get rid of it. And that if I would lean into it for a certain amount of time, it would then leave me. However, don't get excited because there's a second wave and I'd get back to 70% of the pain that I was having. And if I continued to just lean in, embrace it, love it, whatever I wanted to call it, that then it would leave. And so I did what she told me. She gave me processes to kind of be able to get through that. And I did it for the prescribed amount of time and that pain left me and it never came back. And so this is what I was thinking of when what do I want to make a film? So I saw my aunt talking to me and then I thought about that process. And I was like, "Oh my God, the inside effects, how the body heals itself."
Hmm.
Because everything that we need is right inside of us. There's not that out there is not the answer. It's all right here and our body knows how to regenerate anything, how to fix anything, as long as we don't do like I was doing. Was I was dragging my chronic pain story forward into every day, recreating the pain. every
Do
day.
you think to some degree you formed an identity around it? And the reason I ask this is, my wife, she was, without getting into the full story that I've shared 1,000 times on the show, but she was
Yeah,
diagnosed with lupus and rheumatoid arthritis and then has since healed both of those so-called autoimmune conditions. And one of the things that my
right,
wife is huge on is that when you identify with something, like so many people are called, quote, autoimmune warriors, right?
right,
You're actually helping to perpetuate that suffering.
right, right. Yes, anything where our attention goes, energy flows, right?
Amen.
So if our focus is pain, it's coming,
Yep.
right? If our focus is ill health, it's coming.
Yep.
Whatever we're focused, so I was like recreating that story, telling it over and over again. And then when I really looked at it, people felt sorry for me. They
Mm.
gave me compassion because I was in so much pain, right?
Yeah.
And there had to be a part of me that liked that or was addicted to it. Otherwise, why would I hold on to that story for so long, right? And so it was so enlightening sitting down and breathing in and through that whole process of healing now, right? I got so many of those aha moments, so many uh, red flags that I just missed the whole time where I could have healed at any time, right? But I got caught up in the outward story instead of the inward journey. And so I thought, oh man, I would love to make this film and really tell the world about Karen and Lisa. That was the idea, right? I have to introduce the world to these two women because the work that they do could heal the world, I felt like. And so I interviewed them and another woman, Deanna, who also teaches uh, what Lisa taught me. And and it's German New Medicine. They now call it Germanic Healing, right? So I interviewed those three women first, and then I said, "Who do you think that I should talk to?" And then also my wife, as soon as everything shut down, like you, she started to research some things, and she started to share some things, and so she started telling me about, uh, Andy Kaufman and Tom Cowan, and then I started watching them and learning from them. And so I had interviewed everybody for the film, and each person I'd say, who should I interview? And I just kept getting recommendations,
That's
right?
cool. That's
So I
really
thought,
cool that
well,
you're open to the feedback from others. Like, hey, like who else is on the front edge of this paradigm shift?
yeah. So during the process of making the film, every can of worms got opened. But I needed to choose, I felt, the five that were the most important to me. That if I went on CNN and they were like trying to railroad me and make me look like an idiot, that I'd be willing to stand up and go toe to toe because there were things that were passionate and important
What were
to.
those 5 things?
So the five things: how the body heals itself, right?
Yep.
Viruses, do they exist in the way that we were taught that they do? Uh, Big ag and big pharma, are they
So this
connected?
this kind of informed the questions by which you formed the film, is what you're talking about. Those.
Yeah,
Okay, got it. Got it.
exactly.
Yeah.
So the five of, because everything got opened up. I mean, everything.
Yeah.
Right? And then I was like, well, which are the five that are the most important to me? And then that's what I kind of made my questions about. And then right at the very end, when I was like, I'm done, I can't interview anybody else. Then Mara said, you have to see this woman. She's a badass. And she held up a video of Amanda Vollmer.
I knew that's what you're gonna say because
Oh,
it's funny because that's how I consider Amanda Vollmer. So Amanda's one of my best friends, but like she is a badass, and she's
oh,
just, excuse my language here, but she's a woman that you just know she knows so much shit you don't want to go toe to toe with, and you don't want to fuck with her. Like that's the way that I view Amanda Vollmer, at least. But she's
exactly.
the sweetest human being. I met her in person for the first time, like a month and a half ago, and she is the sweetest human being ever. Like the
Yeah.
sweetest. I love Amanda.
Yeah. So I was like, oh my God. Okay, so one more.
Yeah, yeah,
So I connected with Amanda, and it was funny because I had watched a bunch of videos and there was like F bomb and like she was like just really going at it, right? And but if you see her in the film, completely neutral,
hmm,
right? And so when I finished completed that interview, and the whole interview was at least an hour and 20 minutes, right? And my wife said, "Can I watch it?" And so we watched the whole thing. And at the end, she was like, "Holy crap, you tamed the beast! How did you do that?" Right? Because she was just so like neutral. Just I'm presenting
yeah.
information, but she didn't have any of that like that she normally has that we love so much. Uh, and the reason that happened though is because before in every interview, I do a thing that my wife and I created, which is called BPO. Stands for best possible outcome. So the best possible outcome for me for every interview was that we had a great connection. This is the person, me and the people that I was interviewing, and we stayed neutral, right? We stayed neutral, and that we really enjoyed the process. Like we had fun. And so it was connection, neutral, had fun, right?
Mm,
And so that is what I closed my eyes and what I created before every interview.
that's great.
And the place and the space that I was in when they arrived to the room. And I usually had my eyes closed when they arrived. So they're like, ooh, what's Keith doing?
Yeah.
And but and every one of the interviews, no matter who, it was just we're presenting information, we're neutral. I mean, we're having fun while we're doing it, but nobody was like trying to be right,
Hmm.
angry, nothing. And that's what I love about what you do as well, right? So it's that energy, right?
Yeah, it's like an energy of I'm confident in what I know, but I'm
Yeah.
not going to try to like prove you wrong and prove myself right. If you want to come along this journey, so be it. If not, so be it. Just don't impose or infringe upon me. That type of energy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because I think, my right isn't going to be right for everybody. So
Mm.
I don't believe there is any right or wrong, only different,
Mm.
right? And so if something is presented and it feels right to me, great, I grab onto it. But even when I've done trainings all over the world. In the beginning of every training, I'd say, I'm going to say a lot of things today, and here's what I want you to do. Take what works for you, and then I
Take what
put
resonates, leave what
yeah,
doesn't.
and throw it on the trash can on the way out. And I always had a trash can by the door. Just
Yeah.
toss it in the can on the way out because I have no attachment to being right. I'm sharing my experience from what I've learned, and if that helps, great. But I have no attachment to being right about anything.
Hmm.
And you could hear, you could literally hear people exhale in a big room when I say that. 'Cause they're like, "Wow, like okay,
Yeah.
who
It,
does
it,
that?"
it's a tough one for me, like not to go off on a huge tangent here, but I go back and forth on those sentiments because I typically share them, and then I like come to, there are what I would consider commonly accepted objective rights and wrongs
Yeah,
where other people are harmed in the process. Like when it comes to, you know, there are no right and wrong. There is just it works for me or it doesn't. Like that is 100% I think the case on an individual basis. The problem is, just because it's relevant, and I know you know this already. I'm just sharing this for the audience. Like this
yeah,
is
yeah,
kind of rhetorical for you. Like when it comes to what's happening between Israel and Palestine, which I do not want to get into on this because I have three conversations lined up in a row after this one
yeah,
discussing that. Um, it's there are very clear moral wrongs in those cases in the killing of innocent people, of course. But
yeah,
when it comes to the individual, absolutely, there is right or there is this works for me or it doesn't. There is no right or wrong. Like
yeah,
and even on the level of what's going on with or what's gone on the last 3.5 years, another thing that I've been exploring is the possibility that some of the information that both you and I share, because we share virtually the same stuff,
yeah,
there are people who aren't ready to hear it. They're
yeah,
just not ready to hear it. And I can, give an anecdotal example. 7 years ago, we thought, as we were waking up to our holistic health journey, that my wife's autoimmune stuff was caused in part by Epstein-Barr virus. Had you told
right,
us at that time that Epstein-Barr virus doesn't exist, I would have just shut you off and been like, okay, that person's a wacko. And then the
right,
next time I heard that, I would have not explored it. And thank God I didn't come across my current self or your video when I was in the
yeah,
middle of that. It would have been too much for me. So
yeah.
yeah, just wanted to share that. But
That's something that very early on, because my wife's the researcher, she was the one watching all the stuff, and I was like, I don't have any space for that energy right now, right?
yeah,
Because it was just like, it, even like the Patriot thing it felt so angry to me, and I
yeah,
was like, I don't do angry, and
yeah,
what you fight against fights you back, so that's not a match. So I was like, I'll be over here. So she was
yeah.
researching, she was doing all the research, right? And so I just believe for me that everything has a higher purpose, and that most everything I have in my life I created. So the answer,
Yes.
why did I create that? What is it? What's for me in that to learn.
Amen. I agree with
So
that
that's,
wholeheartedly.
yeah, that's the place that I come from, and so it was really interesting. My wife just kept saying, because you're neutral, I think you're the one that needs to roll this information out. I think you
It's
should make a
great.
film. You should make a
Yeah.
film. You should do whatever you can do because you. I think you're the bridge because you're like not picking a side. Maybe people would be willing to listen to you, and and the more that I did watch things with her, the more I realized that there's a thing called cognitive dissonance, right? And so it's like if I'm out there watching mainstream media and I went to university and I'm just buying everything that I'm sold and told, lockstep, they said it, it must be true, then I get why some of the things I would say, people would be like, "What?" And so that's why I chose to come from a neutral space. And because I did that, I'm very surprised that I could count on two hands how much pushback I got from this film that I,
Mm.
because I put to where you could directly email me after you watch the film. If you signed up on, right, the
Yeah.
website, you can just hit reply and it comes right to me. And so the people that did come back at me and how dare you, my response was the same to every person. Thank you very much for your feedback. Blessings, Keith. Right? Because I didn't get triggered. I didn't get upset by what they said. I just was like, that's feedback. Cool.
Yeah.
The,
Yeah.
only this many people didn't like it out of all. That's amazing. And even one person said, I was with you till the virus piece, and then I shut it off. And I said, oh, cool. Well, there's a lot of stuff after that.
Yeah.
you know,
That sucks that you shut it off. There's more than just that.
maybe
Yeah.
just skip that question and go on to the next. And that's the only time I said anything other than, he was like, no, I mean, I really loved it till then, but okay, yeah, I'll consider that watching the rest of it. And but my favorite was a woman who said, I can't believe you gave all that attention to the virus piece and didn't present the other side. And again, I said, thank you for your feedback. And then I read it to my wife, and we both just chuckled. We just laughed out loud because we're like, I don't know, our whole life and the last few
Yeah, like
years.
literally the whole life and every piece of education in both like mainstream and holistic is all about the virus.
Why
Like
would I give even 3 minutes to that? I have,
yeah,
I have to take 29 hours of footage and put it
yeah,
over
I know
2 hours.
exactly. And that's the other thing too is likewise, I'm not, I didn't make a film, but what I made with the end of COVID was
Yeah,
like humongous projects. So I know you can understand this. Like I don't think people truly understand unless you've done it what it takes to do a project like the inside effects or like the end of code. People just don't
yeah.
get how much time and I didn't know until I did it. Were you aware of that prior to making the film?
Yeah, yeah. I have 7 years in TV production, right?
Okay,
And
so
so I was a field producer the last few years, which is TV speak for director, right? And so I had that experience, but it was all kind of way back then,
yeah,
right?
got you.
So then I got into writing books, and then right, and then publishing and all of that. So I was out of it for a long time. So what I did was I hired for the first cinematographer was a aspiring director, really great cinematographer, and said, I didn't try to talk him down or anything. I said, I'm going to pay your full rate because I'd love for you to teach me the new language and the digital stuff as we go, right? And he was really surprised because of the place and space I come from. I was open to letting him line it up first, the way he think it should be, instead of saying, line it up like this, do this, right? He got a first AD credit in the film because he deserved it,
That's
right?
awesome.
He
That's
had
cool you did that.
ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just like, well, I'd go, what do you think about this? And then he'd tell me, and I would either go, I'm going to do that, or I'd be like, "Ah, brilliant," which was most of the time. So it was collaborative with him, and he was just brilliant and great,
Mhm.
great way to bring me back up to speed. And then my experience in TV production is why, like, I've been speaking on stages for years, and every time I'd get up and say, if you want to change your life, turn the news off. That's the
Amen.
first step, right? And then I would tell them, like, I worked in that.
Yeah.
I had to sign non-disclosures saying I wouldn't tell anybody that the story we worked on all day that was on the news that night was pure fabrication, right?
That's crazy.
All to scare the crap out of people so that they would show this news story, scare everybody, and then surprisingly, the commercial right after that was the fix, was the
Yeah.
pill, was the thing, right?
Yeah.
The supplement, and that would help or cure the thing. And I did that for so long before I was like, there's not enough showers for me to wash this off. And then that's when I
Yeah.
started my own production company. And then September 11th happened shortly after that. And all production went to New York and we were done.
Oh
So
man.
that's how I got out of out of that business and got into writing books instead.
Well, thank goodness you did. My goodness, though, and well, it's cool though because you're using some of that knowledge now for good, for
Yeah,
to educate people in positive ways. That's not purely pharmaceutical backed propaganda.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's incredible. And the
yeah,
question I have, because you brought up cognitive dissonance, is as you were as you were exploring some of these concepts, because it was probably like a fire hose for you. You know, you had your wife, thank goodness, who probably had already been looking into this a little bit deeper than you. But
yeah.
what was for you? What was the biggest sticking point? Let's say at first with virology.
That that it's never been proven,
Just that, just yeah, that in general.
like at all,
Yeah.
right? And and the way
When
that
you hear that, right? Like when you hear that, it's like, dude, come on, never
yeah,
been proven, right? You
yeah,
know?
I know. And then one of the first women that I up in New York, that Deanna Courtney, who's German New Medicine, she was
Yeah.
telling me, okay, and the guy put up a bounty for $1 million and said, hey, prove that it exists and I'll give you $1 million. So she said every doctor, every scientist, everybody was like, challenge accepted. I want $1 million. And they all tried and nobody found anything
Or
that
Stefan
counted.
Lanka's court case in Germany, right?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, that
I
was
know
the
you're
one
familiar with that.
person who thought they found it, who said they found it, and then right, and
And
then
then he appealed and won. And of course, going back to the mainstream, if you Google Stefan Lanka, or even if you do DuckDuckGo or Brave,
right,
Stefan Lanka measles court case, all
yeah,
of the results talk about how he lost and was forced to pay. None of them correct and say, actually, Stefan Lanka appealed and he was not forced to pay because they did not sufficiently prove
it
that it
went
exists.
it went to a higher court.
Exactly.
And the higher court said no, which essentially says not a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Proved by a court of law, not a thing. So that was mind blowing, and like I said, my wife had got me to watch Tom. She'd watched me to watch Andy and all of that. But it was the way that in my film, the way Amanda explains it, right, so succinctly,
Yeah.
so clearly, so beautifully, that I was just like, oh, like when she delivered that piece, I was just like, oh,
As Amanda does, of
and
course.
that's why my wife said, Amanda,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And like you said, the connection that we had was just so beautiful, and by the end, I was just like, I just love and adore Amanda, just the sweetest person you could ever meet. And so, oh yeah, so the five things were how the body heals itself, right? I think I got a couple of them out, and then we jumped in. Viruses, a thing, big ag, big pharma in bed together, yes or no, right? And then we did get into supplements, right? Where does traditional medicine, have its place? And then how the body heals itself, right?
Yeah.
Front and back. So, uh, those were the things that were just so important for me. Like I felt like I had to help this get out there to the world. And did you recognize uh, the piece about Rockefeller?
Yes.
Which,
Wasn't that came from Mickey, right?
yes.
Yes, that's what I thought. I was like, I'm pretty
So
sure I've seen this before.
I interviewed Mickey Willis, right?
Yep.
Because I wanted the piece about Rockefeller and that whole medicine model.
Yep.
He took 8.5 minutes to tell that piece. Now, again, I spoke incorrectly earlier. It was 29 experts. It was 42 hours of footage I had, right? And so I have no 8.5 minutes for that piece. And so I go, wait a minute. And I go back and I watch, watch the second movie, right? And Plandemic 2. and it's 2 minutes and 20 seconds, and it's beautifully edited. It's beautiful, everything. So I just texted him because I knew Mickey like long before the film. We're friends. So I just texted him and said, "Hey, can I use that 220 in my film?" To which his answer was absolutely.
That's
And
awesome. That's
yeah, so why reinvent the wheel? It was like beautifully shot. We didn't have rights to the music, so I had my music partner score the piece that's underneath it. It's all eerie and cool, and we just dropped that in, and I was so honored that
yeah.
that he said yes, because it was so well done. And even when I first saw it in Pandemic 2, I was just like, thank you. Like that.
Yeah.
So
Seriously.
so good, so short, and says it all, right?
Yeah.
So grateful, grateful, grateful. Thank you, Mickey.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so it was amazing to reach out to all these incredible people from scratch, because I didn't know Tom, I didn't know Andy, I didn't know Amanda, I didn't know any of these people in this particular field. And however, I have made a career, right, of reaching out to well-known people, doing projects with them, and then
Yep.
getting credibility by association, right, is how I really made a name for myself way back in 2006. Made a move. I did a book called "Who Do You Think You Are? Discover the Purpose of Your Life," and had 10 people from the movie The Secret in the film. So it was like credibility by
Yep.
association. So I got to do a process that I had to do in years, which is reach out to people from scratch, connect with them, share about the project, get yes, do the interview. Right? It was just so fun. It was just became a definite passion project for me, because I wanted to get this information out to the world, and that's the whole reason for doing it, and that's why the film is free, right? Because I don't want to charge for that information. I want anybody to be able to access it. And then I did have for the first so many months to where anybody who watched it could actually download it. That way, if we got censored, it would still be out there, and they would just keep posting
Incredible.
everywhere, right? They would just go, "Oh yeah," keep putting it up. So yeah, it's been an amazing project, and feedback has been wonderful. Thank you for your kind feedback, because I
Absolutely.
really enjoyed making the film. And you may have noticed I have some comedians in the film.
Yep.
JP Sears, right? Craig Shoemaker. Um, and that was because, as you said, as I was drinking out of the fire hose and getting all this information, it was like really dense energy.
Absolutely. It can be,
Really?
of course, right? Especially like, because that's kind of how we laid out the end of COVID, is that it's the journey that people have to go through, really, and that you're discovering, I won't call it inherently dark information, but you're discovering
Right,
how much you've been lied to and how much the story has been manipulated. And that can
right.
be very dense. But then on the back side of that is, oh my God, I don't have to be fearful of that stuff. This is the beautiful new paradigm of health that I can venture into on the back end of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Kyle Cease was kind of the first, funny person that I wanted to get in the film, so I connected with him. I already knew Craig Shoemaker, the Love Master. He's one of my favorite comedians of all time. But when I completed the Kyle Cease interview, he was like, "Who do you not have that you really want in this film?" And I was like, "JP Sears," but I have no connection, right? And I don't even know how to start with that one. And he's like, "Oh, he's my best friend. Hang on." And he texted him
That's
while
awesome.
we were on the phone, and it was like, "Yes, just tell him to connect with my team." And so it was like I got the yes before we even hung up, which was just mind blowing to me, because that's the way things work for me when I'm on course,
Mhm. Amen.
right?
I totally understand what you say. Yep.
If I reach out and things are hard, I know I'm off course.
Yep.
If I reach out and everything just like,
Flows. Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
I know that I'm on doing the right thing and that I'm on course. So it's been amazing.
So you have some experiences. You kind of mentioned this in our little text beforehand with angels. Can you talk to me about that?
I'm being told my audio keeps going in and out. There's
I
a
can hear fine. I mean, I can
oh,
look in
okay.
the chat here. If you're in the chat watching live, please let me know if Keith's audio sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
I can hear you just fine. So I'm not sure why that's happening. Okay.
great. So what did you just ask me? Because I was
Yeah. So
sitting.
the angels thing and
Oh,
kind of how that informs your perspective on consciousness, spirituality, because it all ties in with health. Just yeah.
I want to talk about can of worms. Ever since I was a child, I could hear my guardian angel's voice. So my parents divorced when I was two. Mom was manic depressive, mostly depressive, didn't even get out of bed. So certainly not a parental figure for me. Father's not there. And I feel like my guardian angel was like, somebody's got to help this kid, right? So I started being able to hear this voice. And I knew that it wasn't my imaginary friend like people tried to make it up to be because it wasn't in my head. It was the voice was actually outside of me. So sometimes it was behind me, sometimes it was up
So
in
it's
the
almost like audible, like
yeah,
literally
it was
audible and
literally audible.
within you.
Yeah, and I could hear the voice, and sometimes it'd be up in the ceiling in the corner, and it was constantly moving around, so that I would realize that it was outside of me, not me
Yeah.
making something up. And so this angel kept me out of harm's way so many times, informed me life lessons. It's I wrote a book called Walking with My Angels. It's all in there. So I'll just skip forward to just knowing that angels were a thing from my youth. Then I got into high school drinking and drugging like a lot of people did.
Been
Yes,
there.
I did, and maybe I was hearing it a little less then. However, when I needed it, like telling me how to how to get away from the cops or whatever, it was right there for me.
Mhm.
So I guess creative listening, and but when I basically by the time I was 22, I was up in Fresno, I was bartending, I was in my deepest darkest kind of drug phase, right, and this close to dying from it. Uh, I got a job at a blue collar bar, and there was this guy who was really quiet, kind of mysterious. He rarely talked, but when he did, everybody was leaning in to listen, and he was very intriguing to me in particular. And so I got to know him well enough to ask him to hang out after work. And so we hung out after work. He started asking me questions like, "What do you believe in?" And by then it was not a lot. So I was sharing that. And eventually, after we got to be really good friends, he said, "Do you trust me?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And he told me that he was a real earthbound angel, not like someone who does good deeds. We call those people earthbound angels, but real earthbound angels are people who are assigned to certain people to keep them from dying before their predetermined expiration date. Come back to that later. Predetermined expiration date, and that if those people died before they were supposed to, that it would have a not so great effect on the planet.
Wow.
I'm
You know,
like,
just to lend possible credence to that idea, my mentor and really good friend, Dr. Edith Ubuntu Chan, talks about how her son visited her and her husband in various dreams prior to them even wanting kids. And at one point, and I'm probably going to butcher this a little bit, so if Edith, if you listen to this, you can comment and correct it, and I'll bring it up another episode. But
yeah.
her son appeared to them and said, "Hey, I know you're not planning on having kids," but then he pointed behind him and said, "All of us have created this intricate web of which of us," and he's pointing to other souls of other would-be children, said, "We've created this intricate web of which parents we're supposed to go to."
Mm,
So of course it's your choice. It's a free will world and you don't have to have kids, but just know if you do, then we're all going to have to go back to the drawing board and redo this whole configuration again, pointing to the millions of points of light that were other souls behind them. So yeah,
mm,
just to maybe lend credence to that idea.
yeah, I love that. Whew, so basically spent time with me, a certain amount of time taking me from believing in nothing to believing in everything. He told me at the beginning that he would do a few things. He would teach me, he would get me to believe, he would reveal my life purpose to me, and then at some point he would save my life. And that when he saved my life, then I had to let him go because it was time for him to be assigned and move on to the next person.
Wow.
So he spent over a year, between a year and a half, showing me miracles, having me perform miracles, having me do stuff that I just you see in movies, like doing it in front of my eyes. And by the next day, I would have myself talked out of that it even happened. So he was so patient with me. Um, I remember one time he did something and I was like, whoa! And he leaned back and he looked up and he was like, and he's still impressed by my parlor tricks.
Yeah.
He said, you have more power in your little finger than I have in my whole body. Like that's what you
And it's
hear.
not about the parlor tricks. Like,
Yeah.
no, real quick, the only reason I even bring that up, and sorry I'm interrupting on this, but so I keep this on my desk because of the reminder, right?
Yeah.
So I took this spoon bending class. Um, I'm not going to say by who because I promised that I wouldn't, but you can find old tweets of mine and old posts where I talk about who taught the class.
Yeah.
And 13 of the 16 of us in the class, several of which I've interviewed on this podcast, also took the class, were able to bend a spoon by the end. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because even though this sits on my desk and we were all on Zoom together, and you could see if someone was going, "Urgh," none of
Yeah.
us were doing that. None of us were doing that. I still sometimes don't believe. I still am like, no, that didn't happen, like something. And then I go back and watch the Zoom and I'm like, oh, dude, that happened. Oh my God. Like this is truly like the nature of reality. It's like
Yeah.
sometimes we need those reminders. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, I could relate
Yeah.
in that aspect. So
Yeah. So ultimately, over time, once it got to the right time, then he facilitated an out of body experience with him where I kind of flew out over the city and out into the woods and came down to this fire. And around the fire were like all these avatars and beings of light. And they all told me what I was here to do for this lifetime. And one of the things was that I would write a book called Walking with My Angels, their title, not mine. And that I would ultimately be reaching the masses with the message, all the things that I share, right? And that is that what one of the things he taught me is that call it creation or co-creation. It's just semantics, right? Doesn't matter. Call it co-creation if you're comfortable with it. Call it creation if you're comfortable with it. It happens as we believe, pray believing that we have and we will receive, right? That we create our reality.
yeah,
And by what we speak, what we listen to, what we think, what we believe creates everything.
yeah.
And that was one of the things that I would bring to the masses and share. And so it's really what I've been teaching in every different kind of way that you can put it
I mean,
or
that's a big piece of
present
what you
it.
just taught in the film, the inside effects. And I,
Exactly.
I would assume also in the book, because it's all about how our unconscious and subconscious conditioned beliefs and traumas and all of these things that we haven't addressed and we continue to stuff down, whether that be physically stuffing them down or emotionally and spiritually bypassing them and stuffing them down,
Right.
are informing our current reality and our reality into the future.
Right. So again, cognitive dissonance can come in there, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm told no, everything's outside of me. That's where I have
Yeah.
to listen. I would maintain that every answer you ever need to know is right inside of you. And if you sit long enough in one question, you'll receive the answer. So people
Mhm.
say, like, how come I don't get answers from angels? I'm asking my angels all the time. It's like, well, I teach something called sit, ask, and listen. There's a lot of us sitting, a lot of us asking, but when do we focus on getting the answer to the one question that we asked and only stay in the one question until
Mm.
we receive the answer? It's the shiny object syndrome, the short attention span that
Totally.
most have. That are like, I go, I asked the question, oh, didn't get an answer in two
Well,
minutes.
and people are
Let me go
fixated
on.
on the angel thing because even what came up to me as you talked about, like the voice, the audible voice that you would hear, if
Right.
we're coming from the premise that the universe or consciousness or God communicates in ways that are unique to each of us based on our own life experiences and what we
Yes.
need. Like for Native Americans, sometimes God appears as a wolf. For
Right.
you, it appeared as a voice that was audible. For me, it just appears as an intuitive knowing in my
Yes.
gut.
Yes.
It's different for everyone. All that is appears in ways that are best suited for that individual.
Yes. Yes. And even angels, like people talk about if they see them, they'll show up in the way that you would be able to relate to them.
Exactly.
Right? So like I made a deck of angel cards. I always thought that would be the coolest thing to have, right? So I sat down and said, "All right, so let me take 11 archangels and then just ask them what give me four messages each, all right?" So when I uh, when I I don't know why I'm blanking on the name. Um, what? No. So when I asked this one angel, Gabriel was one of the angels. So I said, Gabriel, give me, four messages that you want the world to know, and I heard it's Gabriel, and I was like,
He corrected you on his name.
I go, really?
Like, hold up, dude. Before we proceed at all here, it's not Gabriel. It's
It's
Gabriel.
Gabriel, and it was a woman's voice, right? And I'm like, okay, Gabrielle, please give me four messages. So she proceeded to tell me, and I mean, I'm typing, and it's like it's not language I speak that's coming through, and I'm like, I'm possessed. This is so cool, right? So I'm
Yeah.
asking, and it's given. And so when I thought about it, and I had the art made by this incredible woman named Melissa Rose Bladen, she did all the angel artwork, and I gave her the name of the 11 archangels and said, don't look them up, please. Don't Google anything, no wiki. Just say, how do you want me to paint you? Say the name, how do you want me to paint you? So when she painted Gabriel, she painted a woman.
No
Oh,
way. Without you telling her to.
yes. So I'm like,
That's
okay,
cool.
that is so cool. And I go, so of course, like I was raised by my mother, my sister, my grandmother, no man around. So of course, Gabriel would say, I'm a woman to me,
Yeah.
right? Strong, powerful women. That's who I love. So it just made sense to me in that moment. But in those cards, like everything, like Raphael, when I told you about the out of body experience that I had had, one of the things that I remembered was that there was an old Indian man with so much wisdom in his eyes, and I like really kept that face in my head.
Indian, like Native American Indian or
Native
Indian Indian?
American Indian, yeah. So when she painted she painted him and sent it back, it was the
Wow.
person that I saw in my out of body experience. So she was just like she didn't even want to take any money. Painted all these paintings and just like didn't even want to take any money because the process of doing that and all that came through and like her painting like she had never painted before. It was just like no, we're good. you know, it was amazing. Um, so yeah, we got a little off topic, but uh, so so yeah, so I've just always known and I've always used that connection to
Mhm.
guide me ever since, right?
Yeah.
And so I know without a shadow of a doubt because of all the things I've seen and were proven to me over and over and over again. And anytime I forget, I just grab that book I wrote, Walking with My Angels, and I read it again.
Yeah,
And I
that's
get
I
it.
mean, that's exactly what I do with this.
Yeah,
Anytime I forget, I look at this and I'm like, "Oh, that's how reality works." Where
yeah,
what you brought up earlier is where your attention goes, the energy flows. That's
that's right.
exactly the case with this, and that's how you end up doing something like this. For those that are listening on audio, I'm holding up the spoon that I keep on my desk, but
Yeah,
it's and we need those reminders because all of us get pulled back into conditioning. Like it's gonna happen. We're in this illusory reality of perceived separation on purpose. Like we're supposed to experience this. So
yeah,
there are going to be times that we're so deep in the illusion that we forget what who and what we truly are and what our potential truly is as human
yeah,
beings and what we're capable of. And
yeah,
even from a religious context, and I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but Jesus talked about our abilities to perform miracles greater than he did. Like we all have these abilities, and Keith and I, and the people that I referred to that were in
yeah,
that course, none of us are special by any means at all. We
yeah,
all have these abilities, and I think this sort of
yeah,
informs us from a health perspective in that there is so much we have been misled on that our ability to heal ourselves is far greater than any of us
yeah,
have realized. And that goes back to the story of your aunt who was given a death sentence with
yeah,
cancer. He said he had 2 weeks left to live,
yeah.
showed back up to the doctor and it's like, oh, you don't have any cancer left in you.
Right. Because she loved Jesus and
Yeah.
loved his teachings, right? And so she heard when and read when the blind man said, "Thank you for helping me see," when Jesus said, "Oh, it wasn't me, it was your belief in me that made you see." Right?
Mhm.
Just he just said over and over again, "It happens as you believe. Pray, believing that you have, and you receive. If you had the faith of a mustard seed, you could move a mountain." that just landed for me as a kid. I was just like, what now? Right?
Yeah, and it's sad because people will not take that literally. And there are, we could argue ad infinitum about the literalness of the Bible, but
Yeah,
for me at least, I choose to take those ones literally. It's like,
yeah,
nope, that's you speaking very literally. If you had the faith, if you trusted and believed in your potential, or I don't even want to say believe, if you knew your potential
right.
as a human being, you could do these things.
Yes, yes. Anything,
Anything. Yeah.
anything. And anybody I know who's had great levels of success, and I've met a lot of them. I mean, directors that we love, producers, just all those people. Every one of them will say they just had this firm belief
Yeah.
that that it would happen, and they were just stuck in that. They just did not veer from that. And I asked my wife one time. I said, "Why do you think we've had the success that we've had in business?" And she said, "Your faith." She's like
Mhm.
you will not be moved. Like when you say this is happening, right? You put your faith in it, and you just will not. Nothing can knock you off of that. And she's like, that's it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, thank you for sharing that. You know, and that's I mean, I just love this film so much because that is one of the underlying messages, right? Exactly what we're talking about right now.
Yeah. Is that why you chose to reach out to Lynn McTaggart to bring her onto the film?
Yeah, it was because the first movie I ever saw like that was What the Bleep, right?
Yeah.
And even though it was like duh for me, right, watching that movie because I had already been like big in like Agape, which is a spiritual center that teaches that at Louise Hay. Like I was
Yeah.
well versed. So for me, it was like, well, yeah. And plus, I'd had this experience with angels, right? And one in person in the flesh spend time with me. So, but I just remember her, how powerful she was in that film, and how she was just like, this is how it is, and how her energy was, much like Amanda, right? So I was just like, yeah, I mean, I got to reach out to Lynn McTaggart, and it no matter who I reached out to, it was like yes. So I was
That's
just
so
like,
cool.
okay, cool, right?
Yeah.
Well, on
That's
course,
incredible.
on course, on course. You reach out to Lynn Taggart, and she just goes, "Yep." I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
John D. Martini, sure, yeah. I mean, it just goes on and on. Right?
Yeah.
J.P. Sears. Let me text him. I mean, so the power of the film and its message, and for me, I think the greatest feedback I got about the film for me was from my wife, because
Hmm.
her father was a one of the pioneers of a certain type of documentary film, observational cinema. She's seen documentaries her whole life and really good ones, right? And I brought home the rough cut and showed it to her. I'm like, it's not finished. It's not. And when it got done, my wife was like, "Wow!" And I said, "What?" And she said, "Remember when we watched The Secret? Remember the energy that it carried? That energy?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "This has that energy. It
Hmm.
has the energy of The Secret." And I was just like, wow, my eyes teared up. I was just like, thank you. Because for me, this is like my favorite documentary film. I watched it over and over again. And just like, if I would make a documentary film, right? This is so good. I love it to be like this. So I wasn't trying to take anything from it, but it was the essence
Yeah. I get
that
what you
I,
mean. And I
that
can
I,
see I can see the relation there. It carries a lot of the same energy in a really good way. Yeah. It's
yeah,
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And one thing that I think the secret kind of misses in terms of that premise that our thoughts create things. And, of course, Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, and others, and even those who are featured on The Secret
yeah,
acknowledge this too, is they don't go deep into the feeling. Like you have to feel it in your body. It's more than just thoughts creating reality. It's
yeah,
thoughts and feelings and prayer and focused effort, like actually doing things is
yeah.
what creates our reality. It's
Yeah.
a combination of all those things.
Did you get to see the original Secret that had Abraham Hicks in it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, that's a whole nother diatribe. But the original Secret was based on the Secrets of Abraham, her teachings, right?
Like Abraham Hicks, Esther
Abraham
Hicks.
Hicks, Esther Hicks, yeah.
Yeah.
So all based on what she teaches, and then they went to a conference where all those people were and put up a camera and shot them all. So so oh man, where was I gonna go with this? So
The original secret, because
Yeah,
I
what
brought up
we've
the
been talking
thoughts,
about.
feelings, taking
Yeah,
effort.
okay. So that's that film, and especially with her in it, was teaching about visualization,
Mm,
right? So you visualize it, it happens. The way that I understand it and the way that I heard it is then, so visualization is creating it. Feelingization, right? The feelingizing it, right, is what speeds up the time of
mm.
manifestation, makes it happen faster. And then, of course, you can't just sit on the couch and wish for stuff and have stuff show up. You actually got to get up, get
Yeah,
your
you
butt
gotta
up,
go do some shit.
go out and
Yeah,
have
you gotta go do some
some
shit. You
action
can't just sit
steps, show
there.
the universe you mean it, and take some action steps toward it, and then it'll happen. But I loved it. It was one of my mentors who came up coined feelingization. Uh, Fletch Rainey, he came up with that, and I was just like, oh yeah, yeah. But Abraham Hicks talked about it in the original film, but they took her out because that film, the worldwide phenomenon that it was huge, and Lisa Nichols had one 20-second part in the whole film. But they went to Abraham after they were making all the money, and Esther Hicks was the only one that got paid to be in the film, and she actually had a royalty piece. So when they made
Oh,
all that money and they came to renegotiate the royalty and say, we want to pay you less or we're going to pull you out. And she said, nah, I believe everybody who saw us with us in it was supposed to see it. Go ahead. And so they took Esther Nichols and had her kind of try to recreate and read all the things that Abraham did.
got
So for me, the energy that I'm talking about that the film has is the original. And if you
got
see
it.
the original, you will palliatively, because you're a feeling guy like me, you will feel the difference between
Got it.
the two, which is really weird. It's only those parts with Lisa that's different. Everything else is the same, but the energy is completely different. That's the
Yeah.
word I'm going to use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Based on what I'm hearing, then I would assume that with you, German new medicine, and then just like Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton's work, the biology of belief, Lynn McTaggart, like that has informed your thoughts on health quite a bit.
Yes.
Yeah. So the question I have with that, and this is something that I wrestle with a lot. And I'm also good friends with Rob Weirgan. He was featured in the documentary Heal. You know, he can lay his hands. I went to one of his workshops. It's incredible. This lady who had either a stroke or had MS and was like struggling to even speak, was in a wheelchair. By the end
Yeah.
of the weekend, was speaking clearly to where everyone was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like it's been
Yeah.
48 hours, and
Yeah.
that quickly you're now speaking. Anyway, um, how much of the process do you think requires accepting, even more than accepting what is? Like you have, like it's because I think on some level it can be spiritual bypassing to deny reality as it currently is. Like for you, when you had chronic pain, right?
Right.
Like how did you balance out, like, okay, I have chronic pain, but I'm going to align my thoughts and feelings and take deliberate action to create a scenario where I don't have the chronic pain, and even going deep into meditative practices and reinforcing that every day to create new neural pathways of I am not in chronic pain, I feel healthy, I feel healthy. Like it, where's the balance there, you know?
Yeah, that's the thing. I had tried the last way that you said over and over again, right?
Yeah,
Affirmations, like trying to say it away.
yeah,
Uh, it literally was when Lisa said, pain equals healing.
yeah.
If you're in pain, that is healing. So
Radically accepting it, like I
you
am
had
this, but yeah,
yeah, you
this
had
is
a
my healing
healing
journey. This
event.
is a yeah,
Yeah, you had the car accident. You had this. You had that. That was a healing event that caused. Now it's in healing. You're calling pain. You're making a bad thing. You're trying to curb it. You're trying to push it down. You're trying to run away from it. You're trying to get rid of it. You're trying to affirm that it doesn't exist. You're doing all that stuff. And that doesn't work because it's healing. And so she just literally she showed me charts from German new medicine about the waves and all that. And she just literally her being so firm that pain equals healing and all the other things she presented just flicked a switch in my mind that flipped it upside down, and it was like everything I know is wrong about healing. Everything I know is literally the backwards from the way that I thought that it was. And if that's true, how will I do it differently? Tell me how. She did. I did it. It left. But it was it because it's what we went back to earlier happens as you believe. So now I believed pain was healing. I believed I didn't need anything outside of me to heal it. I believed in Lisa, as people believed in Yeshua, no letter J back then, by the way. Uh, Yeshua taught, and so my belief that that was going to happen helped me create it.
Yeah. So it wasn't denying reality. It's actually
No.
radically accepting reality and reframing the belief around what is.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that was the change. That was the difference.
Yeah.
All the other tips and tricks and things I learned and agape practitioner and just like all the stuff I learned, Louise Hay, all that, none of that worked. As great as it sounded,
It
it
didn't work.
was it
Yeah.
was until my belief system got completely shook up, flipped upside down, and shown to me that way was the way that would work for me, right? So my belief in that created a healing in me.
Yeah,
Just
it's more than the thought patterns. It's the entire belief system that needs to be uprooted and
yeah,
changed.
how did my aunt do that in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Because she believed that she could get rid of it in 2 weeks
Yeah.
without a shadow of a doubt. I'll come back in 2 weeks and we'll see where we're at then. I mean, if that isn't firm belief,
That's that's badass. That's Amanda Vollmer level
yeah, they're
badass.
just like, okay, crazy lady, whatever, right? And then she comes back and it's gone. Like that's who I
Yeah.
want to teach me when I'm 7, so that it could still be with me today. But
Yeah.
but where was that when I got in the car accident and all the stuff that I was creating? Where was that memory, right? It's just again selective memory. So I believe I needed to have what I had for as long as I had it until I met Lisa, so that I would be able to tell this story, so that I could teach. Like,
Do you
so
look
that
back on that with gratitude now? Well, you have to. I mean, if you change your whole belief system around like this pain is my healing process.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now it's like if I get a little twinge or I'm I'm killing a workout and I get this like pain in my stomach. I don't run to the doctor and let him give me a bunch of stuff for it. I just go, okay, let's go to work and get rid of it, right? I
Yeah.
don't. I'm not afraid of anything now, right? It's anything that's been created can be uncreated. Okay, I get it. I
Yeah.
get
You
it,
get it now. Like, thanks,
right?
thanks, Auntie. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and that
awesome.
was the piece that I wanted to walk away with from this film more than anything, right?
Yeah.
And it's like this, I know for sure. It happens as you believe. No answers are outside of us that we need when it comes to our decision about our health.
Amen.
Right? Like you can go ahead and, John D. Martini said, go out and get multiple diagnosis from everybody, get their opinions or whatever, but then come back and tune within and see what do you get that you should do. Like
Yeah.
they all have an agenda. They all right
Of course. Yeah.
have a
I love
reason.
I love what Tom Cowan said on that too. Is like, how do you avoid doctor's diagnosis? And he said, you don't go to the doctor.
Right.
You just
He
don't
goes,
do it.
they
Just
don't know anything about healing,
he's like 99% of the time what works is you literally just don't go to the doctor.
which is funny because he was an MD.
I know. Well, I don't know if that you had this experience with Tom, but he hates when you call him Dr. Cowan. He's like, no, just please just call me Tom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't do it. And Karen Can, right? One of
Yeah.
my friends that the film was created about and for, she was an MD, and then she was like, oh no, no, no. Then she went to acupuncture. She's like, not enough, nope. And then she ultimately created her own healing modality that pulls everything from muscle testing to pulling in the light and created this thing where she's just people are having healing like all the time, right? And the only kind of class I've ever taken with that was her course. She's like, oh my god, my mentor's taking my course.
That's
This is
cool.
so cool because she's the only one that I ever heard like when her do her thing with people, and I was just like, oh, I see how that works. I see why it works, and
Yeah.
I want to know that because I'd love that in my event if somebody was just like, oh, I have this thing that I could just like go, oh, there you go, and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
oh my god, it's gone. So yeah, so I did the film, and as we were editing the film and we were getting toward the end of its creation, I realized that I I had a little bit at the end, when all the bullet points were happening about like, okay, so I'm on board. What do I do now? But they were just kind of general things to do, and so I was feeling like, oh man, I want to provide the next step. So you've watched the film, you're like, I'm on board, but what do I do for my thing, right? Specifically, what do I do to heal my thing? And so I thought if I just reached out to all these people that I know that had healed from completely different things and asked them like what did they do, uh, and that would be so valuable, right? To
Yeah.
have the book be specifically about the next step. What do I do now that I'm on board? I want to heal, and that each person kind of had a different thing that they're healing from, so that when I read the book, oh, there's my thing, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I created the book. It launched the same time as the film, and every other publisher would do 99-cent Kindle, 9.99 book for 1 day.
Yeah.
Act now, and then it's all going to go up. I want the world to have access to this information. That's why the film is free, right? So
Incredible.
the Kindle is 99 cents. Still, even it was an international bestseller in 9 countries, biggest launch we've ever had, hands down, right?
Incredible. That's amazing, Keith.
99-cent Kindle, 9.99 soft cover, and the reason anybody that knows about books knows not a ton of profit in 9.99 soft cover, right? Through Amazon. Uh, so the reason I did that is because this type of book, most people would it would be $20, right? So what I said, the reason I'm keeping it at 9.99 is I would love for you to buy a copy for you and someone you care about, for you and someone you know that needs a healing and would not receive this information had you not handed them a copy of it,
Amen. That's
right?
amazing.
So people are just buying two, and giving a copy to someone that they love. And because this is a passion project, right? We're publishers, we do things where we make money, and this project wasn't about money. This is about getting the word out to the world, all the things we've been talking about today and more with from that film.
Incredible.
Yeah,
That's so cool. So
yeah.
cool. So what's you talked about like your life laid out. What would be like when you get into your 60s, what are you supposed to be doing? Are you like going to be a professional sailor and like sail the world or like a
My wife asked the other day, or a couple weeks ago, she's like, "Okay, so dream scenario, all right? You got we got a billions in the bank, whatever. Just you're doing whatever you want. What are you doing?" And it's always been, I'm making music and making films and
cool.
putting my music in my films. So yeah, I'm either writing music and recording with legends, right? Because they're my friends, right? Let's do that. And making movies because I want to, like, the books that we publish are books that make a difference.
Yeah.
If you look at our whole catalog, there's no war, nothing's
Incredible.
angry. You feel better when you put the book down than when you picked it up or it's not in our catalog. So I want to make movies that make a difference. And I mean full featured films where you walk out going, whoa, like rethinking things like Lisa made me rethink, right? Where you
Incredible.
just like I got 5 ahas during that movie. Like that's the thing. I don't want formula. Everything's perfect. Oh, there's a big blown out of proportion conflict, and then there's a montage, and then everything's perfect. Credits roll. Like I don't want to do that. I want to make real films about real things. I guess if I had to use an example, What Dreams May Come would be the example of the
Got
type
it.
of film that I want to make, right? Because that made so many people think about
Mhm.
life after life, right? Uh, which is something
Have you seen the film The Power of the Heart?
no,
That one's a good one too.
yeah,
Really good.
I
Yeah,
just
definitely check it out.
I love watching films like that where I just
Yeah.
feel like, yes,
It's
when I
produced by the same people that made The Secret. It's good. It's really good.
awesome,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Well, Keith, this has been an incredible conversation. I'm glad went off on a lot of tangents that I didn't really expect that were really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Can I
Um,
share the link for the book? Uh, it's the Inside Effects book.com.
got it.
If you go there to grab the book, you can click a link which go off and purchase it, but come back and put in the order number and you'll get gifts from people in the film and in the movie. In the film and in the book. you'll get free gifts from them. So it's like not just a book; you get a bunch of gifts for grabbing
Awesome.
the book. Yeah,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And for those listening or watching, please check out this film. It's awesome at theinsideeffects.com. Thanks again for joining me, Keith.
my pleasure. Blessings.